Which brings me to the two vital issues that I think need to be named here. Postulate 4. The anti-delegitimization campaign will succeed only if we have wall-to-wall support. When the Jewish community needed to designate who would be the spokesperson at the last Presbyterian convention, the one before, it was the Reformed Jewish movement. But this time, it was J Street, who had the pro-peace credibility to stunt the efforts of the anti-Israel forces and were compellingly effective. And they did this in the Berkeley battle, in the Bushead fights. They've debated the Jewish voices for peace there. They've called a one-state solution for exactly what it is. They pushed the U.S. Social Forum against BDS. Many may support J Street. Many may be opposed to J Street. You're opposed? Say it. Talk about it, criticize them, chastise them, challenge them, but we cannot afford to write them out of the delegitimization campaign. APN and J Street, Meretz, Aminu, the Israel Policy Forum, they often have a credibility to stand before strongly dovish non-Jewish groups and guide them away from BDS. Take that international trade union campaign I talked about. It was led in part by the eloquent head of the Australian Confederation. He staunchly, passionately, eloquently opposes efforts to boycott and divest from Israel, even while remaining at most neutral on the possibility of supporting the Palestinian Authority's call for a targeted boycott of settlements in the West Bank. For that matter, by the way, the PA itself opposes broad-based boycotts of Israel. We need to make better use of that as well. And that brings me to my final postulate. This campaign must be about delegitimization. It cannot solely be about BDS. That confuses the issue. Centering only on BDS rather than on what the core is, delegitimization, will divide the pro-Israel community, while delegitimization unites us. Why? Boycott, sanctions, and divestments are tools. They should be, they must be denounced and opposed when they are used wrongly, as they are in the delegitimization efforts. But they are not inherently evil. And for us to make such an argument would make us be seen as hypocritical. We supported or support divestment and sanctions or boycott, not only against illegitimate or inherently immoral regimes like Iran and South Africa, but against legitimate entities as well. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King's birthday celebration. When we were fighting the battle to have that recognized in states across the country, many of us boycotted states that did not endorse the Martin Luther King holiday. We weren't saying Arizona is illegitimate. We were using economic leverage against a policy that we believed was wrong. And we did the same on states that refused to endorse the Equal Rights Amendment. We didn't say North Dakota was illegitimate, or like South Africa. We were using our economic clout to change a policy. During the years of the Arab boycott, many divested from companies who cooperated with the boycott, not because they thought the companies were illegitimate or that the healthcare or auto products they produced were evil, but because we were using economic leverage to change a policy and to say that we would not be complicit. Or take the federation system itself. In the main, across the country, federations do not fund directly beyond the green line. And withholding funding in this manner, we're not prepared to write them out of the anti-delegitimization campaign. If those people who led the battle in the International Forum of the Labor Movement, in the Presbyterian Church, in the Lutheran Church, in the Methodist Church, would support a boycott of produce from a West Bank settlement, do we want to write them out of the pro-Israel community, out of our anti-delegitimization campaign? How will we succeed in the anti-delegitimization campaign if we do? How will that help Israel? If dovish Jewish groups in the U.S. or Israel or prominent Jewish cultural figures support the Israeli artist boycott of Ariel, criticize it if you think it's wrong. Challenge them. Explain why it's wrong. Go to head with them on doing that. But we must not put them in cherem when almost to a person they would vigorously oppose DLC, often in many fora, far more effectively than more conservative groups in the Jewish community could do. The core of the international DLC is a network that calls itself the BDS movement. And their effort to create a one-state solution is a kind of racist denial of the Jewish right for a homeland that I discussed earlier. But because they call themselves that, does not make all forms of boycott, sanctions, divestment the same. If we are prepared to say there is no difference between boycotting strawberries from a West Bank settlement and declaring Israel to be an apartheid state, we will turn away, we will delegitimize and alienate vast numbers of American Jews, particularly young Jews, and we will lose vast numbers of our key allies in the very components of civil society who will help us fight the DLC. And we need now not to just to fight against delegitimization, we need to take all those networks we've created and weave them together into a cohesive whole in favor of legitimization. We need an international campaign for the legitimization of Israel and to put them on the defensive here. So to my colleagues, to Ambassador Orens, who will soon address us, I urge that we make this campaign about delegitimization. Denounce those forms of boycott, divestment, and sanctions that contribute to that. But do not write out of this effort those who love Israel but may have differing views with each other about issues beyond the green line. That divides the unity of the Jewish people. It divides a powerful array of forces in our anti-delegitimization campaign. I don't want to tell all those people who fought for us in those denominations. They have no continuing role in our future efforts here. It divides the pro-Israel community. If our dream of Am Yisrael Echad is to be real, this must be a campaign that brings us together in focusing on delegitimization. For the people's sake, for Israel's sake, for the sake of the success of our efforts, we need to find a way to have that big tent. And however you answer these challenges I have put before you right now, I want to end just with this one statement. You who have been involved in fighting these efforts, God bless you. You will make all the difference for Israel. The story of Israel's legitimacy is being written as we meet here, and its survival depends on it. And you have only one choice. Will we be the authors of that decision or the audience watching others make that decision? And if we remain silent, in the vacuum of our silence will come voices that do not share our dreams, our hopes, our aspirations. Your coming here today is a testimony that your answer to this call is Hineni, here I am, and we will not cease. Here I am, here you are, here we are, one people committed to make Israel safe, secure, just, and a beacon of light to humanity. That it must be and deserves to be on its merits, not just now, but for all the generations to come. God bless you in your efforts.
Well, so take that. You know, I was thinking about what our adversary is. You know, we really identified our adversary in some respects as delegitimization. Others has framed it as the BDS movement. I like to think of our adversary as really being ignorance. I have a colleague. The delegitimizers are a relatively small group. There's not a huge army of people out there who are so rabidly anti-Israel that they spend day and night trying to figure out ways of undermining the state of Israel. But they prey on people who don't have much information. They're very, I would say, call them naive. And one of my colleagues defines this issue as the malevolent leading around the naive or the ignorant. So our enemy, in essence, is that naivete, is that ignorance. How do we bring more influential people within these various civil society spheres, within government, etc., to become less ignorant and less naive so they will be less prey to those hardcore delegitimizers? A number of provocative things, interesting things have been said. We talked about the need to have a big tent, an open tent. We talk about, and this has been a theme that's run throughout the discussions this morning, the need to have people on all sides of the political spectrum. There's an Israel think tank called the Reut Institute, and this is something that the Reut Institute has said about the need for a big tent. Obviously, criticism of Israeli policy, even if harsh or unfair, is legitimate as long as it does not amount to demonization and delegitimization and does not blatantly deploy double standards. Often, however, Israeli government policy fails to differentiate between critics and delegitimizers, and sometimes ends up pushing the former into the arms of the latter. Instead, Israel, the Reut Institute report indicates, should engage its critics, picking up on David's point, while isolating the delegitimizers. In essence, embrace the Zionist left, make the Zionist left our allies to drive a wedge against the extreme left that Daniel was speaking about before.